Hello and welcome to Fact and Suspicion. I'm your host Ben, here with my co-host Dan. And today we're going to do things a little differently. There has been an update in the Madeleine McCann case. Now, if you're not familiar with the Madeleine McCann case, we do have a video on that. I recommend you go back and watch it. But Daniel is going to do a brief overview of the case, just in case maybe you've forgotten some details.
Right, yeah, like, if you're not one of our regular viewers or you haven't, been, following Madeleine McCann for many, many years, just remember that Madeleine McCann went missing in 2007 from her parents' home, from the apartment that they were renting while they were on vacation in Praia de Luz, Portugal. Madeleine was 4 years old. No, excuse me. She was about to be 4.
Okay.
Yeah, she was almost 4 when she went missing. Now, they were on vacation in Portugal with some of their friends. And what they would do is, reportedly, at night, they go out to eat at this tapas restaurant that was very close to the apartments they were renting. And these are apartments in a resort. They're not just, just random apartments. It's not like, well, they didn't have Verbo back then, but it's not like that. This is a resort complex they're on. Now, what they would do is they leave the kids asleep in the apartment, which
God. Every time I hear that, I cringe.
Yeah, like
it just seems like such a bad idea.
I could not imagine doing that myself. No, not at all. But they would leave them in there, and then every 30 minutes or so, someone from the group of friends would get up, check on everyone's kids, come back to the table. Now, this particular night, Kate goes in to check on the kids, and Maddie's gone. And Maddie has never been found. They've never found her body. They don't know where she is. Her parents were very heavily investigated. The media presumed them guilty for a little while. But there's never been any evidence to convict them. And then later on, just a couple years ago, so there was a suspect named Christian Bruckner. We'll talk more about him later if you don't know about Bruckner. Because if the Madeleine McCann case is not something you have followed in the last 2 years, you would not have any idea who Christian Bruckner is.
He's the most recent suspect.
The most recent suspect, and was named, at least by German police, as the number 1 suspect, and UK police.
So there are like 3 separate countries who have investigated this case at one time or another, right?
Yeah. Exactly. You have Portugal, which is where it happened. Germany, because Bruckner is a German citizen and is, currently in jail in Germany. And there is some thought that he could have taken Maddie to Germany while she was still alive.
Okay.
Also, you have the UK police because Maddie was a UK citizen. Now, the breaking news on this, however, is that the UK police are ending their investigation into the Madeleine McCann disappearance.
Do we know why?
Not exactly. The best we can tell is it's because of budget constraints.
I mean, it just seems strange. If Bruckner's such a solid suspect, why end it now?
Well, you have there are some definite implications from this, but there hasn't been a big news release about this. It's not a big press conference. This is a source close to the investigation citing this. The direct quote that the New York Post and several other publications have given is, "There are currently no plans to take the inquiry further. The end of the road for Operation Grange is now in sight. The team's work is expected to be completed by autumn." Now, Operation Grange is the name they gave the project in the UK.
I was just about to ask that. Yeah. So yeah,
right. Now, according to the New York Post article, they extrapolate this to mean that there has been insufficient evidence to charge Bruckner, who is the prime suspect. Now,
it does seem like a reasonable extrapolation.
If we take that on the surface, though, if they're ending it because, there's not enough evidence to charge Bruckner, I think that means they're sure that it was Bruckner and they're not going to investigate any further because they know who it is, but there's not enough evidence. However, every other article besides the New York Post article, and then like several UK publications I've read, say nothing about there not being enough evidence. So this does seem to be a supposition of the Post.
Okay.
They do say in those other articles the investigation will continue in Germany and in Portugal.
I mean, I guess it's just a pretty reasonable assumption, honestly. I mean, I guess their logic is if there was good evidence to convict the guy or to take him to trial, they would never end the investigation.
Exactly. Well, this could also mean that there may be charges forthcoming soon.
Right.
Like no one has claimed that. Another interesting tidbit just about Madeleine McCann is I want to say it was 3 days ago. There's a brand new 48 hours episode about Madeleine McCann.
Did it touch on Bruckner?
Yeah, it was all about Bruckner.
Okay.
They were talking with German officials about Bruckner and how there's German officials, they're sure it was Bruckner, right? And like you can go watch that. There's a good 60 minutes episode about it as well. But I'm going to go over Bruckner again here in just a moment.
German investigators are pretty convinced Bruckner was involved.
Yes, yeah.
Now, do the British investigators share this?
Yeah, I've heard UK officials say they're very certain that it was Bruckner. Now, I can't say Portugal shares the sentiment. Portugal,
they thought it was the parents.
Yeah, the Portuguese authorities were
honest,
very certain it was.
I don't blame them.
Parents.
The parents have acted really strange.
Yeah, and we discussed at length in our last episode about why there were some definite strange things. There were some
cadaver
dog hits, some blood dog hits. But that was most of the evidence was that, and the biggest thing that I think drives this in most people is that they left her in that apartment.
Yeah. So even if they weren't directly involved, dear God, I mean, that was just so stupid. And what parent does that? It's so irresponsible.
So let's talk about that for just a second, because we did discuss this in the last episode, but we had a lot of comments on that episode.
We did.
Talking about why were they not at least charged with neglect? And,
I know, because I'm the one that has to deal with it. You did the episode, but I have to put up with the comments.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, we did discuss this. Like, are they culpable? Like, were they?
Oh, they're definitely culpable, right? I mean, had they not been so damned irresponsible, the kid never would have been missing.
Well, one thing I want to mention though is like,
whether they actually did anything to her. That's the question.
What about cultural norms in this sense? Because in the UK, I'm not saying in the UK people leave kids in their apartment and go out and eat.
I mean, I would have a hard time believing that.
But this was this was within eyeshot of the table they were sitting at. The apartment was, right? Now, there are some disagreements about like whether or not this tree was blocking the door or not. The tree may have well been blocking the door, but if you can't still see like the apartment, that's one thing.
The problem I have though is that you couldn't see the kids. I mean, what if one of them had choked or something? You'd never know.
I mean, they were supposed to be asleep, but yeah, I completely agree with you there. I am a parent, and I'm a very paranoid parent. And like my kids would never be left. Like I wouldn't leave them with the resort babysitting service in another country.
Paranoia seems to be part of the job description.
Yeah. And I think like I would call them, like bad parents for doing this, right?
Yeah.
But as far as cultural norms go, like parenting in the UK, at least in 2007, was different. I think people left their kids alone a little bit more. I'm not saying they left them alone in a foreign country, but I mean, hell, I can't remember which. It's one of the Scandinavian countries. Like people leave their babies parked in strollers outside of restaurants while they go in the restaurant.
Is that true?
That is very true. Yeah, and there's not really much kidnapping.
It's just I hope these are low crime areas.
Yeah, it's all Scandinavia is low crime, man. But I mean, you just got to think about cultural norms in different countries. Like this could shed a different light on it. We have to look at it through that lens.
Okay, but
I'm still saying
even if it was
a terrible fucking idea, but it doesn't mean that they are guilty. It doesn't mean that they killed their child.
Right. But I mean, even if that was in line with cultural norms at the time, doesn't preclude it being a terrible fucking idea.
I'm not saying that at all. I think it was a terrible idea.
Some cultural norms are just better than other cultural norms.
Just to address a couple other things, like some comments we got, like some things that we didn't necessarily touch on much in the episode, is that some people feel like it is a problem because Kate and Jerry McCann did not contact the police directly. Now,
I do think that's a little strange, to be honest with you.
Well, according to my research, and I will say there have been slightly differing reports about who exactly called the police, but most of my research says that one of their friends, one of the Tapas 7, actually within 15 minutes is down at the front desk of the resort telling them, we have a missing child. We need you guys to help us search. We need you to contact police. Now, I don't know.
15 minutes does seem a little strange, though. I mean, when a kid is missing.
We've covered other cases where it was a lot more than 15 minutes.
Particularly as young as she was, where would she have gone? Right?
Well,
it's not like if she had been like 13 or 14, yeah, you'd probably go check around the resort a little bit, right? Maybe she wandered off with a friend or something.
Right.
You might not go immediately into absolute panic mode. But she was 4, dude.
I am not disagreeing with you on that. But I will say if the parents are panicked, looking all over the place for it, and they say, hey, go let the resort know, get them to call the police. Now, I've heard some people say, hey, maybe they didn't know how to contact emergency services in another country.
Yeah, that was a question I had myself.
But 112 is the number in all of Europe.
Okay.
So they should have known that. And I'm not saying this isn't a little suspect. I don't think it shows guilt necessarily.
No, not necessarily.
I think that it may be a little strange. I don't know all of what to make of it, but I don't think that 15 minutes, between the time they saw she was missing, if that is in fact when they knew she was missing, was 15 minutes, and the time that the police are contacted is that bad, just 15 minutes.
I will give you this.
It's not like it was 2 hours, right?
Since we've been doing this, we've certainly seen larger gaps between when a person went missing and when the police were called.
Yeah.
But 15 minutes for a 4-year-old missing, that worries me a bit. I find that troubling.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm sorry, it was Rachel Oldfield, by the way, that was the one that was supposed to have gone down the front desk.
She wanted the tap of 7?
One of the tap of 7, yeah.
Okay.
Now, the other big thing that I've heard a lot of people say is they think that it shows guilt that the McCanns, Kate and Jerry, got a PR firm involved very early on. On the surface, that seems weird.
Yeah, I mean,
it seems really weird.
It's what the Ramseys did.
Yeah.
To get because public sentiment was almost immediately against them, and they were trying to spin the story.
Right. Well, things went a little differently. And I'm not saying that the McCanns didn't want to spin the story. They could have. I cannot prove that one way or the other. But one thing I do know is that when they got the PR firm involved, Portuguese police were not publicizing this, and they wanted it to go public.
So the difference there is that their goal, you're saying, seems to be that they were trying to get her story more into the media.
They wanted her story out there. They wanted her picture out there.
They weren't necessarily trying to manipulate the public's perception of them.
I can't say they didn't want to know that.
But you don't think that was their primary purpose? But
there wasn't a public opinion of them at the time,
right?
If they hadn't gotten the PR firm involved, we wouldn't be talking about Madeleine McCann right now. Right. That's why it blew up. Okay. Because that was their doing. And I don't know that, if you're guilty, if you murdered your child, I don't know that you want that to blow up. Right.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
I mean, maybe they did. Maybe they wanted to get ahead of it and get some spin out there. I don't know.
With the Ramseys, there was nothing they could do at this point. That story got out of control immediately.
It's a very different timeline in this. And I'm not saying, like, for any of our regular viewers, I'm not saying this can't show guilt. I think it can, but that point wasn't as big a deal to me. Like the biggest thing to me was one, they did leave her there. The timeline of events is a little crazy about somebody saw the door open.
And the blood and cadaver dogs.
The blood and cadaver dogs are the biggest hanging point for me. And I don't want to get back into that because there was a whole thing.
We talked about that in detail.
Yeah, look at our other episode. If you want to know more about that, I don't want to get on that big hanging point. I do want to move forward though, talking about this news that the investigation is ending in the UK. And I want to talk about Bruckner a little bit, if you don't know about Bruckner and exactly why he is a suspect. Now, I did read in some articles saying that probably the biggest reason for this ending is budget issues. 13 million pounds have been spent by the UK government alone on the search for Madeleine McCann.
Do you know how large of an outlier that is if you compare it to other missing children?
I do not know exactly, but several people have cited, how do you feel if you're the parent of another missing child when, Madeleine McCann, they've spent 13 million.
I think we need to know the difference there before we could even.
That I don't know, but I know that
if they were spending 10 times the amount on the Madeleine case, I certainly understand my parents would be furious. Right?
Yeah, I would say that's probably fair to say that they have spent 10 times.
That's the power of media, man. When public, there was such a public outcry with this case. Yeah. Of course, the police are going to have to spend more on it.
Now, if you
It's a sad reality.
If you're in the
reality.
States and you're not like familiar with the conversion rate, 13 million pounds would convert to about $17 million. I didn't look that up myself and convert it. That's just according to the Sun. So
Okay,
but I would say they know what they're talking about. But yeah, $17 million on this investigation. I don't think that's too big of an amount at all. Like for me, I think we should look for missing children, any missing child, until we get answers.
Spare no resource.
But that's not the case for these cases that don't get big media attention. They do not get the same treatment in the States, in the UK, wherever. That's
just a sad reality.
And this is definitely a privilege of the fact that Kate and Jerry had enough money to get that PR firm.
Yeah.
But again, this does show like what that PR firm has done. This is still being investigated now. We're still talking about it right now. The UK spent 13 million pounds investigating this, and none of this happened on UK soil.
So you said earlier, so is there some speculation that the reason they've stopped the investigation is because they may be filing charges?
That I have not read that anywhere, but that is a possible outcome. It could be because
usually you announce that you're ending the investigation that way by announcing the charges.
It seems to me, since Germany is spearheading the investigation against Bruckner, they would be the ones to announce the charges. Mm-hmm. German police are really weird about announcing anything. Like they are the most tight-lipped police in Europe about not giving details.
Okay.
That being said, they've given a ton of details about this investigation, but they never actually said Bruckner's last name. They called him Christian B the whole time because by German law, they cannot release his full name.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's weird, but
even when it's already common public knowledge.
Yeah, well, it became common public knowledge because, obviously you can get police reports and know who's in jail and line this stuff up. I mean, reporters can bring that stuff out, but they're still not saying his name. They still call him Christian B. But let's talk about Bruckner a bit and why he became a suspect. And let me just go ahead and tell you, this is not somebody if he got put in jail, like for the murder of Madeleine McCann and was gone forever, like this guy needs to be put away anyway.
So even if he didn't do it,
we know this guy needs to go away, right? Now let's multiple investigators, Germany, UK, they have said he is the strongest lead ever in the case. Definitely there's more evidence for him than there ever was against Kate and Jerry, according to these investigators. Okay. Now, according to an interview with German prosecutor Hans Christian Wolter, his exact quote, "We have strong evidence that Madeleine McCann is dead and that our suspect killed her. We have enough evidence to say that our suspect killed Madeleine McCann."
Did they say what evidence they have that Madeleine's dead?
They did not release like their evidence of why she's dead, and that's because it's an ongoing investigation.
Those are some pretty strong. That's some pretty strong language there.
Yeah, especially from a German prosecutor, right? Like prosecutors in the U.S. spin stuff a lot. In Germany, they don't do that. They don't release information if they don't have a lot.
Okay.
Now, Bruckner was, at the time of Madeleine's disappearance, he was living just 1 kilometer from that apartment in Portugal.
Really?
Yes. 2 years earlier, he raped a woman just minutes away from that apartment. Now, in Portugal, he was arrested in 2006 for theft.
I was just about to ask if he had a prior criminal record, I guess that answers that.
Yeah, and at the time...
I know we discussed him last time. I just don't remember much about it.
Well, at the time, he didn't even give an address, right? He would not give them give the authorities an address. He just let them put him in jail and wouldn't tell them where he lived.
Seems like that'd be pretty easy to figure out. Like if you're an investigator and you can't figure out where your suspect lives.
Well, there was no...
maybe you should consider a different career
Well, there
path.
wasn't a paper trail leading to him, right? There were no records. He was just like paying cash rent on this place.
Oh, okay.
And he didn't have he had registered a vehicle in the country, but I don't know if you don't have to give an address or what. But and Bruckner did have a criminal past in Portugal as well. He was arrested in 2006 for theft, and at the time he apparently was trying to cover up where he lived, and ostensibly because there was a horde of evidence of child pornography and stuff like that in the house. Don't know that for sure because when he actually moved out, the owners of the place cleaned everything out. He left a bunch of stuff in there, and they just threw away computers and everything like that. Like he just left in there.
That's a trove of evidence.
Oh, I'm sure it would have been, but a lot of evidence was found years later in Germany at a place he owned. Just a trove of evidence of child pornography and videos he had made himself, stuff like that.
So he's a real scumbag.
Real scumbag. Yeah. Like,
so we've got a guy in Portugal within what distance to the
1 kilometer.
Within a kilometer, who has a past of at least child pornography.
Child pornography and rape.
And rape. Yes.
Rape for sure. Right. Violent rape. Now,
seems like a strong suspect.
Now, also, if you'll remember, one of the windows was open in the apartment.
Yeah.
Right. Well, when he raped that woman 2 years earlier, he went in through a ground floor window as well.
Interesting.
So he had a history of doing that. Now, Bruckner's phone pinged right around the Ocean Club during the window of time when Maddie was abducted, according to the timeline of checks. Right. There were multiple sightings of someone acting suspicious around the Ocean Club in the days before her disappearance that matched Bruckner.
Okay.
One sighting actually describes a blonde man in a camper van acting suspicious just across the street from the McCann's apartment.
Did Bruckner have a camper?
Had one, matched it exactly.
Damn.
He drove that. He was driving that. I can't say he was driving it that day, but he was driving that van at the time. He owned it at the time. Now, how Bruckner came to light for this particular crime is that a friend of his reported to police that Bruckner admitted to him that he's the one that killed Madeleine McCann.
Okay, yeah, that seems fair.
No, we've had cases in the past where people have talked big, and we say we're not sure that they're actually the person.
Yeah.
Holly Bobo, for instance, like we know that guy said I went around town bragging I killed Holly Bobo.
More than one person admitted to the
we're not
John
sure.
Bonet murder.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. But with Holly Bobo, we're not sure because there were a lot of questions about the investigation.
Right. Yeah.
And we don't know. So we don't know just because he said I killed Madeleine McCann. We don't know that he necessarily did that. That's not proof. But with everything else, it's pretty.
Yeah, it's not looking good for him.
Not looking good. Now, just days after her disappearance, he left Portugal and returned to Germany. And
suspicious timing, no question.
Yeah. So now we know after investigation that he committed at least 20 burglaries in Praia de Luz and almost always targeted houses on the first floor apartments rather, with windows that were easy to get into, just like the window at the apartment that Madeleine McCann was staying in.
Yeah. Do they think that he knew Maddie was there, or do they suppose he went in for to rob the place and it was just a crime of opportunity?
There are different theories about that.
I guess there's no way to know for sure.
Yeah, there's no way to know for sure. But there was a strange phone call he got just about 30 minutes to an hour before the supposed abduction that he got on his phone. And a lot of people think that was someone calling him that he had placed to watch for, possible apartments for him to get into.
Is there any reason they think that? Or is it just the timing of the call?
The timing of the call, mostly. And he was supposed to be in the area at the time. So there's no
Seems like a lot of extrapolation for very little.
He did seem to have been, if the reports of someone that matched his description being there just days before were true, it seems that he was scoping out an area to maybe burglarize, and maybe he was scoping out, a child to abduct. We don't know.
It just seems so strange because he seems like a pretty strong suspect. So I don't understand why they did the investigation, unless they were charging him.
Right. And like I said, we've talked about him being a suspect. There's more to it, to Bruckner. I don't want to get into it now because this is just an update episode.
Again, right? We discussed Bruckner in detail in the episode.
Go to our other episode, check it all out. There's a lot of information there. But articles I've read, other than the Post, are saying the investigation is continuing in Germany and Portugal. So if German officials are the ones planning to present charges, perhaps they have all the information they need from the UK police.
That's another question I have. Who has jurisdiction for the charging here? How does that work?
God, there is so much here. Now, from what I understand, German police are the one that are going to be charging this because he is a German citizen. There is suspicion that he brought Maddie back to Germany. Mm-hmm. And if not, the Germans are the one that found this evidence that allows them to say that he killed Madeleine McCann, from the quote we had earlier, right? So it seems that German police are the ones that will be charging. I'm assuming, and I don't know all the intricacies of police jurisdictions in Europe, but I'm assuming that there are agreements between these police forces about how they work together because they're all part of they were all part of the EU. I mean, with the UK and Brexit, that I guess that gets a little hairy, but I'm sure there are agreements that deal with that, and I don't know all the intricacies.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
All right. However, like I said, this could mean that they didn't have enough evidence to charge. This could mean there are charges coming forth, and it could just mean because all of the investigation is now being handled in Germany, they don't think it's anyone that was in the UK, and they've spent so much money on this that they can just end this, right? They don't have to spend money on it anymore. Though I will say, it looks bad from a PR perspective to me to end that.
Without question.
Like, I don't think that I would announce that we're ending this because of budget issues, though. Right?
No,
I might lower the budget and just keep like one person working on it until the case is closed. Maybe.
I mean, that's generally what happens, right?
Yeah, right.
They never really stop investigating. It might go to a cold case unit or something, but
it's hard to say.
Publicly announcing, yeah, we've decided because we don't have the money, we're not going to investigate.
It wasn't a public announcement. This was a source that reported this.
I know that they haven't, which it would be very stupid to say that publicly.
Right. And I'm hoping to get a press conference on this in a few days to see what's going on, but we wanted to get this out there while we could.
Maybe
because we don't know if any more
information
will come out. Yeah.
Since these articles have started coming out, maybe they'll be forced to respond, so we'll get some more information.
Well, I'm hoping that this means because they've made this decision to end the investigation in the UK, that either we're going to find out that charges are coming or charges are not coming for Bruckner.
That'd be nice.
And I'm hoping that's what it means.
But if charges are not coming, I'd like to know why specifically.
Yeah, I would as well. Though I don't think we'll get more of an answer if there was just insufficient.
Was it simply a lack of evidence, or did they come across evidence that suggested he wasn't the individual involved?
Well, if they came across evidence to suggest he wasn't involved, I don't think they would have ended the investigation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, though I think
because if he wasn't involved and you want to keep investigating Kate and Jerry, I think the UK police still need to be involved in that.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
So I think that I feel like this announcement at least strengthens the case that it was very likely Bruckner. Either way.
I still think the parents are suspicious as hell.
I can't say they're not. I can't say they're not.
The evidence against Bruckner, at least the circumstantial evidence, that's hard to ignore.
It is. There's so much circumstantial evidence. And I feel like the circumstantial evidence that you have against Bruckner is way stronger than the circumstantial evidence you have against Kate and Jerry. Now, you do have like the cadaver dogs. That's what like really sticks for me about it. But to me, that is not enough looking at all this evidence about Bruckner to
just ignore it.
Just ignore it. I mean, I thought it was Kate and Jerry for a long time ago, but we didn't do this episode until, after our episode until after the Bruckner case came to light. And that really brought me around with it. It made me look into, like a lot of the intricacies of the case and why this matters, why this doesn't matter. And you can look at our other episode for that. We'd love for you to look at that. But this is what's going on now. We have an investigation ending. When I first read the article, I thought the investigation altogether was ending. And the first one I read was that Post article. Mm-hmm. And that one said, because there was insufficient evidence to bring charges, I was livid for a few minutes until I read some more articles.
Yeah, I remember you texting me.
I was pretty bent out of shape because when you have something like this happen to a kid, I want the investigation to go on forever until we have answers. I told Ben last week after we did our episode on Josh Duggar, I was like, I can't talk about kids next week. It bothers me too
and here
much.
We are.
And here we are talking about him. I was like, let's do we're going to do a scam artist episode this week. I guess I'll get pushed to next week, but yeah, I was like, I don't want to talk about kids anymore. It really affects me a lot. Let's move to something else. And here we are again. But again, I hope this means we're getting information. I can't say that for sure.
What we can say for sure is, though, as soon as we find something out, we will keep you updated.
Yeah, we will. Anything with this case, because this was a big deal to us. This case was. We're going to keep you updated on it, just like we did an update on the Delphi case.
Well, this is one of the first cases we discussed doing. It's not one of the first cases we ended up doing, but it was definitely one of the first ones we threw around.
Yeah, and it was one of those I wanted to spend a lot more time researching, so I was doing that between other cases. But yeah, but that's all we really have right now. We will keep you updated. We want to thank you for listening to or watching Fact and Suspicion, whatever medium you're using. if you like our content, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell a friend. Any of that stuff helps us immensely. Also, if you want to request that we do a certain case, you can leave us a comment on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube.
Or just email us.
Or email us, factandsuspicion@gmail.com. You can get us on Twitter @andsuspicion. You give us some feedback, anything you want to. We'd love to hear your feedback on the case. We got a lot of feedback on this the first time.
Oh, yeah. I know. I got it.
A lot.
Loud and clear.
And we would like to thank you for listening and watching. And we will see you next week.